Good evening. Welcome to Awake and Aware. I am Nick Angel, and this is Awake and Aware. I guess I need to practice that, but it is Sunday, December 6th at 8:30 p.m. Thanks for joining me. Just got a call right at that moment, so just a second. So this week on Awake and Aware, we are going to be discussing anxiety for one big thing. We're also going to be talking about meditation, meditation as a peace practice, daily routine meditation. And I have a special guest that'll be joining us in just a few minutes. Her name is Joanna Albrecht. She's a friend of mine for a few years now, and she is a healer, intuitive healer, life coach, and also an author of a book about letting go. And we're going to discuss that coming up. And she's not here with me today. We've got COVID going on, so we're doing a lot of our interviews via online, but she's going to call in here. She is on the line with us, and she'll be with us in just a second. So I just want to thank you guys again for joining us. I'm just going to roll the intro here, and I'll see you guys in just a second. I'm up. Wake up. So this is Awake and Aware. I think we've got Joanna on the phone. Joanna, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, Nick.
Awesome. Glad to have you. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. It's going to be so fun.
Right. So this, for those of us just joining us, it's Sunday. This is the Awake and Aware show, where it's a community where we discuss and talk about things, some of the hurdles and some of the things that we can do to better live consciously in our lives. For those who don't know, and maybe this is your first time joining us on this show, the definition of consciousness is to be awake and aware of one's surroundings. So we are talking about tips, tricks, topics, things that get us through our life to better improve our lives, but to better be conscious. And consciousness isn't just being aware of what's around us, but also how we affect the things around us, the people around us, and what we can do to better that. So again, thanks for joining us today, Joanna.
Yay. I'm so excited. So thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. I've seen you for so long, posting all of your inspirational messages, and you are really just a gift. You are just a gift. Because I know there's so many people out there in the world that are posting not so uplifting things, but I think people don't realize how important it is to have those like uplifting messages in the world. So thank you so much for that.
Well,
you're always I always love seeing your posts.
Well, thanks for acknowledging it, and that's definitely a likewise. I think we feel that the sentiment is very much the same between us, because I feel the same way about you. And as you were saying that, it made me think of a new show that a lot of people have been watching or have probably already seen. If you have Netflix, I believe it's called Queen's Gambit. And what's interesting is how you said that so many people are posting negative things, and this show just came out. It was a real dark horse. There was a little chess reference. But I found that everywhere I thought that show was going to go dark or get really dirty turned out to be positive. And I was pleased, so pleased to have that in this. We really need that type of content. And, you know, as you were thanking me for that, or acknowledging that, I like to try to it's not just positive, but it's meeting beyond what the positive expectation is. And I also had to look into myself to recognize that show showed me some of my own trauma, because my expectations of it to turn darker than it was at every turn was just the way I was imprinting on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's what we see. I think that's what we see on some movies or TV shows, how dark it's like there's a contest how dark you get. But I just
Right.
binge watched that show the last 2 days, and I finished it
Ah,
last night.
maybe
And
I'm a
I
little
just
psychic.
right, but it was so good, and it was so well acted, and yeah, it was definitely uplifting. But I know I have a lot of empaths that are in my circle, and some people were afraid to watch it, and then other people were saying, no, just watch it. Just
Mm.
it doesn't go as dark as you think it's going to go, and yeah, it was just the right amount of everything, I think. And the clothes were amazing, and the acting was phenomenal, and yeah, I loved everything about that. That was a really good show.
I think it was
I wonder if
dark in
they'll
all the
have
right
another season.
places too.
It was dark in all the right places. Exactly.
I,
That's it. That's
I've
it.
one of the things that in college, taking a few writing courses, um, I was dismayed to find out that one of the formulas, and a lot of producers and people who are in the industry that are the gatekeepers tend to believe there's only one formula, and that's to just keep throwing opposition at people, and make them basically seem like they're crippled in the roles that they have to play, and that's to make these hero stories that you have to have great opposition to be a hero in a story today. Think of a movie with The Rock. Well, the building's falling down, or there's an asteroid going to destroy the Earth. Her opposition wasn't so great. And it was mostly with herself, and
Right.
that was some, of course, what befell her early on. If anybody hasn't seen this movie, or excuse me, the show, it's a miniseries on Netflix called Queen's Gambit, about a young lady who's orphaned and then adopted, and learns to play chess in her orphanage, and becomes one of the great chess players in the world, and beating and toppling misogyny, also battling her own addiction and some of her own past demons, and some generational curses that maybe her mother had as well. Not generational, excuse me, genetic curses that her mother might have also passed down to her.
Yeah. It was. I think the relationships that she had and navigating all of the relationships in her life was also interesting. I thought each one was just fascinating.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
love the inner workings, especially the guy that she had a crush on and what happened there, and yeah, just so many wonderful interactions. I just yes, yes to that show. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely tune in.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was exceptionally well made for the production value that I would expect from Netflix. Netflix canceled some big time shows a couple years ago
Hmm.
because of the production value. Marco Polo for being one, which I thought was a great show. They just didn't make any more seasons, even though it was well watched, just because they claimed that it was too expensive.
Oh,
And so to see a series where the production level was vast, and like you said, the costumes, because it was a period
mm-hmm.
piece, and
Right.
I think it takes place in the 50s, mid 50s, late 50s. It felt like to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some money required to do that, and I think they pulled it off very well. And like you said, the uh-oh. The, is acting. The acting is just phenomenal. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember the actress's name, but she's been really praised. And what's funny is, as quite often when I see something and it's a new actor or actress to me, I then start to see all the other stuff that they were in before this, and recognizing, oh, I've seen her before. She's been in a bunch of other stuff that I've watched, and she's really talented.
I thought, yeah. So her name is Anya Taylor Joy.
There you go.
I, I let's see, movies and TV shows. She's been on a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Yeah, I'm glad you're looking that up.
Yeah, right. Because
Powers
we
of
live in the
technology.
future. We
Yeah,
live
we
in the
do.
future now.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Oh, we live in a state that I could have never imagined as a youngster. We are there's clearly we're not flying in cars. I thought that would already be here, but that has to do with bureaucracy, not technology.
Right. Um. Yeah. she's been in so many things. Yeah, and the new Dark Crystal. Well, the new
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's got some big stuff coming up. She's been in some big movies too, like really big movies, and was just kind of under the radar. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's a little of both. But I think she's getting her light. From what I've noticed on Netflix, every day that show has been in the top 10. Normally, things in the top 10 last 2 or 3 days. That thing's been there for like a month. So people really liked it. People talk. I mean, they're not talking about it like Tiger King because it's not as sensationalized. But I think they enjoyed it, and I think it fit the space for this day and age is one that she didn't have to overcome super demons, and there weren't people just purely taking advantage of her, and it was wholesome enough and positive enough for at a time when stress and anxiety is probably at an all-time high for the entire globe.
And that's what a great transition, actually, because she deals with that anxiety in her life, and through the show, she's taking these pills, or she deals with it with alcohol,
Tranquilizers, if I remember correctly.
Right, so she's trying to deal with this stress and anxiety of her life, with different substances, right? But she learns how to overcome it, and she learns how to deal with it on her own and to create her own, like, she learns as people do, that it's within you the whole time, right? Maybe the pills taught her how to see in a specific way, but it was always within her, right? I hope that's not too much of a spoiler for this show.
Well, I think we you give somebody 2 weeks. I think after Star Wars, when all the things that happened in that leaked, I think it was safe to say after 2 weeks you could talk about it. So we're past 2 weeks. I don't think anybody's going to be upset with you.
Right? Yeah, I was a little late to the party, but that's the thing, and in today's world, we're all trying to deal with stress in our own way. And so that's a little what I wanted to talk to you about today is the anxiety that people are feeling and the stress people are going through. It's I've always had that low stress in my life, but about I guess it's been a month now, I got into a rear end car accident.
Right, I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Right, and it was interesting because at the time I was just kind of laughing, and I was like, well, because the guy was like, oh, you could just drive away from this. He's like, my car is bad, and I was like, well, I'm like, you hit me, like, what can I do?
I hate that's a sad. I think somebody had mentioned to me the worst things that we can go through are divorce, loss of a child, and accidents, like large physical accidents, to bring on stress and anxiety.
Yeah, it didn't hit me. Well, it did hit me apparently, but
good play on words.
But like I didn't think it affected me very much until I got home, and then when I got home, I started shaking and I started crying, and I reached out to a friend and I was like, I'm shaking and crying right now, and she's like, it's fine, you'll be fine, like, just like, it's okay. And I was like, all right. And so I made an appointment to go to the chiropractor, like, within the hour, and they gave me an adjustment and all these things, and then I went home, and I was okay, but at nighttime I was having a little bit of trouble sleeping, and I started to have nightmares, and then when I was driving around in my car, I had this low level of anxiety. It wasn't super bad, but it was there, and I could feel it in my body. Like, I could feel it in my solar plexus. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I'll just meditate. It'll go away. Like, I'm a chill person. Like, it'll just go away eventually. And it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it
That's
kept on,
that
it kept on saying,
persnickety.
and I was like, and then finally, after a few weeks, I was like, well, maybe I should, like, CBD oil actually makes me more anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it was my friend, but I was thinking, well, maybe I should take CBD. Maybe I should get a prescription for Xanax. Like, this anxiety's not going away. And all of a sudden, I heard inside of my head, yeah, you actually do know what to do, and you've been doing this for many, many years. And I want you to tune in to where you feel the stress and anxiety, because the stress and anxiety that you're feeling is your body's way of telling you that you're not present in your body and you need to come home. And so I took a deep breath and I focused in on my solar plexus, and I was just present with my solar plexus and the anxiety that I felt there. And it almost instantly went away, and I felt this sense of peace.
Nice.
And
has it returned?
Right? So there was 2 or 3 times when I felt it come up. I did the same thing. I just became present in that space, and it went away. And that is what I remembered that I've known for so many years. And I was like, I could have been doing this 3 weeks ago.
Why did I live with this for so long when I had the key and the tool?
And that's the thing. It's like, I knew, but it took me 3 weeks to get into a space to realize that I had those tools. I think we all have these tools inside of us that we've been learning for so long, but we just need a reminder, right? We need a reminder. And I think it was because I was like, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And then I finally realized that I already had those answers.
So let's take a second for those that are just joining us right now. And in the past few minutes, what we're talking about, first off, I have on the phone with me, Joanna Albrecht. You've seen her promo before I started the show, or it's in my feed. And I apologize that I was a little late getting to the show and doing production. So I don't have her picture up here just yet, but I'll get it up in the middle of the show. But we're talking about anxiety, and Joanna was in a car accident. And she was hit, and after it totaled your car, didn't it?
It did.
Okay, so it totaled her car, and she went to you went to the hospital the same day. Am I correct as well, or did you just go to the chiropractor?
I went to the chiropractor because I figured I could go to the emergency room, but they wouldn't be able to align my spine like the chiropractor could. I've just known too many people who eventually had to go to the chiropractor, so I wanted to do that first. But I've been to the doctor since then, yeah.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that you got some kind of medical attention and didn't just say, I'm fine, and walk away, because so often people do that, especially in a whiplash, because they hit you from behind. Am I correct?
Yeah, I did. I did get whiplash.
It doesn't always present immediately. It's one of those things that can show up later down the road.
Right. And my arm was tingling, this whole craziness. But they took x-rays right away, and and it turned out I had whiplash. So I've been going to physical therapy since then, 3 times a week for 2 hours at a time. It's intense.
Yeah.
But you know what's cool?
Go ahead.
How cool this is. So I have always had, my neck has always been kind of tight, and my shoulders have been kind of tight. So the whiplash exacerbated it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But what the physical therapist was telling me is that if you have tight shoulders and a tight neck, one of the reasons why is because your mid back is weak. Mm-hmm. And so your neck and shoulders are actually compensating for a weak mid back. So I've been doing these exercises to loosen up the neck muscles and the shoulder muscles, but strengthen the mid back, and it's been amazing. It's been so amazing.
Are you using a roller? Are you laying on a roller? Is that one of them?
Yeah, so the roller is I'm laying on it lengthwise, so it's in the same direction as my spine is.
Vertically, gotcha. Mm-hmm. Yep, like that.
Yeah,
yep, perfect.
And so you squeeze it. You squeeze your middle back against the roller, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just kind of like doing the squeeze action.
It's like you've
and
got a
then,
tennis ball in the back of your in between your shoulder blades.
Yeah, but it's this whole big roller.
Right.
Right.
I
And then
have
you
one
do
right
like,
next to me, actually.
it's so amazing, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
just fabulous. Have you done these exercises? These things?
I was hit by a car in college on a bicycle, where I was actually hit. The car caught me in the side, and I had 4 bulging and 2 herniated discs. And then on the day to pick up the check for my settlement from that accident, because I didn't sue the lady, I let her go. I was then rear-ended in a car, stopped at a red light, was rear-ended by a guy named Nick,
Oh,
a 16-year-old driving a Roush Mustang. I let him go too. He didn't even have a driver's license, but because my money was not my intention, I didn't want to deal with the law system in that situation. But I was okay. But yes, I went and saw a chiropractor and a physical therapist, and I started taking training from America's Top Team, which is a jiu-jitsu fighting system. Wasn't doing fighting. It's just their doctor was training me for physical therapy. And then my next follow-up was yoga. And it was through yoga that I really changed the physiology, where I no longer had bulging or herniated discs. I mean, they can go away over time if you're exercising and a healthy person. Otherwise, they can deteriorate and become even worse. That's where most people deal with those situations. But if you're sounds like he's got you doing the exact right exercise. That's the key to dealing with whiplash, is to strengthen to the best you can, as long as there's no nerve damage, is strengthening the muscles in that area. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was such a blessing. And as soon as it happened, I was like, something good will come out of this. And I just feel blessed, really, because I wouldn't have known all this stuff. If I hadn't gotten into the accident, I wouldn't have known about the exercises to do to strengthen my body. And I'm feeling my body in a whole new way.
Love
I'm
that.
sure that's how you experienced that, right?
So listen, this was probably, I would say, a good 4 or 5 years of experiences stemming directly from that moment in time. That was life-changing. I learned about Thai massage, really got into yoga. I had never done yoga prior to that. So, to now be a yoga practitioner or a yogi, have my own personal practice that stemmed directly from that accident. And yoga is, if there's nothing better I've ever found to become more aware of your physical self. Each muscle, muscles that are on top of muscles that you did not know existed, or taking the time to breathe within space, within your muscles. That's something that we're unless we're taught or initiated in, that's just not something that we would normally do, because that's not our normal. It doesn't exist in our society without having somebody else show it to you.
Totally. So did you have any anxiety after your accident?
Oh, absolutely. So right before we got on the show, I had mentioned to Joanna that I had picked up a marijuana addiction from anxiety, just from having anxiety, and a lot of that stemmed from. So one of the things that happen, I think, that tends to happen is with spinal injuries, is we get some kind of goop that, I don't want to say it's spinal fluid, but when even when you pop your back, we're releasing some negative energy. Not just, it is negative because it's been dormant for so long. It's energy that's been dormant in our spinal area. And we have to live through that. Like, it starts to manifest in ways of experiences, thoughts, feelings. And we might be in a great space before that happens. Then all of a sudden we have this pop in our back. And then the next thing you know, we're like, what's going on in my reality? This isn't the trajectory that I was on.
Mm-hmm.
So I fully experienced that, where everything in my life changed. I was in the best physical shape I've ever been in my life. I was contemplating bodybuilding when I had that accident. So immediately afterwards, I worked in a gym after school, and I was no longer physically going to the gym like I was. I wasn't cleared by the doctor to go to the gym for at least another 6 months, and my life, I don't want to say revolved around the gym, but I was going to the gym 6 days a week. And to just stop that cold turkey, I still have weight today that I'm carrying from that accident, even though I bulked up and I eventually, knocked it all off, got the 12 pack again, but I'm still, I got bigger. I gained 20 pounds in that whole process that was not muscle, that changed my physiology. Because of that, I perceive myself differently. And because of that, I started to get anxiety that was crippling. If I didn't do something about it, I was non-functional. I could go to work, but to me, that's not functioning. That's just that's just going to work. That's survival state. But function, I didn't want to hang out with people because even when I only gained when I was just a pound, when I started to lose my 12 pack, I didn't want to be around people. I felt that I was ugly. And listen, I'm not a vain person, that my persona was aligned with what I look like, but that's certainly how I felt after the fact. Like I was like, I know better than this. Like, so what? When I get better, I'll go work out again. Who cares? This is not a big deal, but it didn't change the way I felt on the inside. And because of that, even though I hadn't really gained any weight, I felt like I had gained 30 pounds when I maybe had only gained a pound, and I perpetuated gaining more weight because of the way I felt. And then anxiety set in, something fierce.
Isn't that the way it is? It's like our body follows the way we think about it. And I saw this meme a while ago. It says, I wish I was as thin as like years ago when I thought that I was fat.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it was. So like looking back at myself now, then those days that I thought I was fat, I'm like, oh my God, I would trade everything for that. Cause all that anxiety I had going on, I was looking good, so, it is what it is, man. But yeah, it still plays a role, today. And as everybody told me, is those back is like, you think you're cool now, but later, maybe on, it may still play an effect and have a role. I don't have the same type of pain that I did. I have all my range of motion, but I didn't have some of that range of motion when it first happened. So
the yoga.
Oh, listen, if there's anything I could ever recommend to anybody to take care of their physical health, I'm an old school gym head, military, physical training, PT, all kinds of things. But the only thing that I could tell, so the beauty of yoga is that it's also a spiritual system. Just short of that, I'm also a fan of Pilates. I'm a huge fan of Pilates, which has a deep roots in yoga. And I also, aero Thai. I don't practice it, but I have seen the benefits of aero Thai and Thai massage. And those things are just, it's phenomenal because the attention that you send to your body, you learn about your body and those things, and they're all deep rooted in yoga. So yeah, I highly recommend that. But the biggest thing about yoga was not the strength that it gave me or the leaning down of weight. It was really learning about how to focus energy and breathe into space that exists within molecules, within your spine, within your ribs, within your lungs, and breathing into these spaces is it's otherworldly. Especially over time, what it does to you. And you, like, as I've mentioned before, I always like to go to the side when I go to this side. Awake and Aware is about being conscious of your surroundings. Well, this is also yourself, and being conscious of the space within your body. I knew my toes were there. I knew my fingers were there, but what about the space between my fingers and toes? All the way through, like, I never really stopped to acknowledge my heart ever in my life before doing yoga. I never acknowledged my kidneys or my duodenum or my medulla oblongata or my pineal gland or my brain or the nervous system. And I'm not just going to keep naming anatomical parts, but my point is each one of these systems has a function in your life. And life can be miserable if none of these are working right. But to then acknowledge them, you become aware of them. You become aware of how they sit together, how they fit together, how you feel when you sit a certain way for a length of period of time, the effects of a sediment lifestyle. All of these things became aware to me. And I recognized that I wasn't living a healthy lifestyle, even though I thought I was. And what I mean by this is, a lot of people think, oh, I'm a vegetarian, that means I'm healthy. No, that doesn't mean. Being a vegetarian might be completely wrong for you. I'm not suggesting that it is. I'm just saying, but until you know what your body wants and what it needs, you really don't know what's healthy until you actually take the time to figure out what's right for you. And I realized, because I was eating protein, I thought I was the man because I ate a lot. All I ate 185 grams of protein every single day. And I weighed 185 pounds. And I thought that was perfect. And I ate green vegetables, so my brain didn't just go to mush. And I thought that was it. I took a supplement. I thought I was doing everything I needed to do. And that's when this is the same time that I started to realize that I didn't have enough energy to get past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's what led to Awaken Aware. It wasn't just the energy, but it was the main thing that made me recognize the combination of the terms Awaken Aware.
Right.
So I didn't for years find a solution to my anxiety. I walked around with it. I told you that I found marijuana as a solution. It wasn't a solution. It was just a quick fix. It just masked the problem, and I could feel it. You knew it was there, and you knew as soon as the marijuana high started to wear off, that anxiety was coming right back. And this is how I got an addiction, because then I would immediately light another joint and keep smoking until I passed out or went to sleep, or was doing some extreme something to circumnavigate the marijuana. And that was always something that I couldn't do every day or involved other people. But that's what I found. And I'll get into what I found later in years, but I'd like to hear your take on what anxiety is, what you think the mass problem is for anxiety, why it's so prevalent today, because it doesn't seem like our parents had the same level of anxiety that we do. And that exists in our reality today, and maybe your thoughts on what might cause that, and then what your solutions are for, I know you mentioned one of them about focusing on it and really getting into it, but I want you to elaborate on more on how that works and actually walk me through that so I can use that as a tool.
Yeah, I can't wait until I really am interested to hear your transition from like smoking pot to like how you found. Maybe it was yoga.
It's one of them. It's definitely one.
Nick, I want to know. Okay.
Also, so what I want to do is I have this new little segment that I want to introduce on the show too, and we'll segue. So we might as well do it now. What it is I was thinking about how music plays a big part in my life, and how music is one of the things that I use to combat anxiety today. That is natural.
Yeah.
And what I've decided to do is I'm going to share a song. It's called The Beat of the Week, and we can listen to it and we can talk right over it, but I want to get it playing. And just so the song is called Speakeasy. So give me just a second. Let me just roll this little intro for this song, and we'll go from there once the music's up and running. So that's not the song, but the song is Speakeasy. That's my own little music for the beat of the week.
That was a good transition song.
I appreciate it. But so here is Speakeasy, and we're just going to let it play in the background here. And so it's by Dow and Bo Dakal. And it's a new song, just came out this year. Super chill. It's instrumental. But I kind of figured, so one of the reasons that I like is the ability to talk over a song, the ability to stay in conversation to me, while a song is playing, or not be completely distracted, and its ability to enhance either my level of focus or creativity at the same time is how I personally, at this stage of my life, judge music. Because there's a million songs that I could choose to that have lyrics, and I could pull stuff out of catalogs of the 70s, 60s, and 50s, and even the 80s of great music that I could listen to at any time, but I've heard tons of time. But it's not going to help me move anywhere new in my life. It's just listening to another song and me vibing with it. This, on the other hand, doesn't get in my way, and that's why I chose this. It's called Speakeasy.
I like it.
Good. I'm glad. So, so go ahead and take it away. Let's hear your take on anxiety. I'm gonna lower the music just a little bit so it's not overpowering us too.
Awesome, thank you. So, as you mentioned before, I wrote a book called Moving On and Letting Go, A Guide to Loving Yourself Again. And one of the reasons that I wrote the book was because I have been in and out of relationships where I had given myself away completely and had to kind of crawl my way back to self-love and self-worth again. And it happened repeatedly, and I finally realized that it was something that I needed to learn, and the book was a way for me to kind of create a guide map for myself in case I ever got into a relationship like that again, to teach me how to get back to self-love and self-worth. So after a particularly hard breakup, I said, okay, that's it. I'm writing a book of all the tools that I'm using to get back to myself again. And one of the things that I realized during the process was the anxious attachment that I would create with my partner. And so if we were talking and if things were going really well, I felt really good. But let's say I texted a partner and he didn't text me back for a while. I would get really anxious and I would start making up all sorts of scenarios in my head, and I would get really stressed out, and it would be this whole big thing. So what I did was I stopped and I said, okay, what's happening here? Like, what is happening? And what I realized is that I was projecting my energy looking for my partner. And so I was outside of my body looking for them energetically, like, where are they? Unless I have them here, like, I'm not going to feel better. They have to do something in order for me to feel better. And so the anxiety that I was actually feeling was me perceiving my body was saying to me, hey, nobody's here with me. Like, I feel lonely. I feel anxious. I feel upset because you aren't present here with me. You're over there with him, and nobody's at home in your body. So you need to come back into your body and be present. And so as soon as I would say, okay, where am I right now? I need to breathe myself back into my body. As soon as I would do that, as soon as I kind of imagined it like reeling myself in like a fishing line, like wherever my energy was, I would reel myself back in. I would breathe myself back into my body. And as soon as I was fully present back in my body, then anxiety would be gone and I would just be fine. And within moments, that partner would call me. That partner would call or text or whatever.
You done triggered their, I like to say you triggered their string.
Yeah,
string theory. That's the scientific wording for that, but sure. The synchronicity, the connectedness of it all. Sure.
Yeah. And the thing that people don't realize is that when you're constantly sending your energy over to that other person, you're already in their space. Like, you're in their space energetically. And so they don't need to call you. They don't need to come into your space because you're already present in their space. And sometimes that gets overwhelming for the other person. And so as you breathe your energy out of their space and come completely back into your body physically, then they have the space to feel free enough to come and call you again, because they're like, oh, I miss your energy. Your energy's not here in my space anymore, right? And so that was a revelation to me once I realized that. I was like, oh, that's how it works. Because I wondered, I was like, I'm giving them all my time, all my attention, like all my energy, and I'm giving them all, I'm giving them everything I have. Why aren't they being present with me? And it was because I was pushing them away with all of my energy, and I was overloading them with too much of my energy. So they didn't have the space to be able to miss me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it was, yeah, it was amazing. And that's when I learned, oh, like people really love you and are attracted to you, not what you do for them necessarily, but your presence and your essence. And if your essence isn't in your body, if it's over there in the past or in the future or with another person, then there's nobody in your body for someone to love and appreciate.
Wow. What deep insight.
What's that?
I said, what deep insight.
Yeah. I think a lot. But
well,
I had to learn.
Right?
To learn it.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you definitely had to have some level of consciousness to even probably jump to that conclusion, or not jump to that conclusion, but come to that idea of self and recognize that on the surface face value stuff was not just enough. It's the inside stuff that has some real connectivity is going on the inside.
Yeah.
I missed that for years, for many years.
I don't like to think that adversity is the reason why we become aware. Like, I would just like to believe that we could connect and that could be all. But what I've experienced in my life is that from those dark times, from the times that, we're at our saddest, or, we're the most fearful, or it seems that we're at our lowest point, those are the points in time where we can really shine. And and maybe it's because we're like, okay, now I really have to pray. Like, now I really have to connect in, because there's nothing else to do. Like, you just have to surrender into the greater purpose of life, whatever that might be. And so that's how I learned. I had so many crappy relationships, and I was emotionally hemorrhaging. Like, I was so sad all the time, because I was like, why does this keep happening? Like, why doesn't he love me? Why am I, like, I give everything, and why am I giving everything and I'm not getting the love in return? And so I had to learn that. I had to learn that in order for you to be in a healthy relationship, like, your self-love relationship has to come first.
Oh, like, for sure.
Right?
I think one of the hard lessons that I had to learn specifically to what you just said was that you gave everything and you still didn't get what even the minimum. Well, one of the things I've learned about people is sometimes they don't want what we give. Doesn't matter how much of it we give, they just don't want it. They want what they're producing from us, or the sense of feeling that they get from us. It may not have anything to do with us. It may just be that some people will just live off of the synthetic energy that they're creating from how they perceive, maybe their self-esteem boost for just being with you, but really they don't like you and they don't really want to be with you. They just want the self-esteem boost of having somebody. Or somebody may be codependent and they just want to be with you because you're somebody else. And it's sad that I had to experience all of those different scenarios to realize that, oh my, and it's not just, oh, well, how come here I've put all this in and they don't even recognize any of what I'm putting in. And then I feel, then I introspect, well, what's wrong with me?
Right. And we don't realize, like, it could just be what's
go ahead, say it. Oh, I thought you were going to say, what's wrong with them?
What's wrong with them? Well, sometimes there's an amazing person and another amazing person. I remember, I was in this one relationship, and he was like, "You're kind of like bleach, and I'm kind of like ammonia, and we're really strong cleaners and awesome, but like when
Right.
you put us together, we're toxic.
No
Like
bueno.
we're just toxic." And it was
That's
true. It
what.
was just true.
What an
Yeah,
analogy. Wow.
but that's it. It's like
I think that's the most toxic gas known to man.
it was a really bad relationship. I've had money, but that was pretty bad.
Well, I bet in recognizing that, I bet that changed the relationship drastically just in seeing that. And because I found that like acknowledging a toxic relationship, like mutual acknowledgement tends to, open up one is it kind of dissipates some of the toxicity, which, I'm not suggesting that people should, but that's also a pitfall and a trap that I had to learn about because I've been in relationships that were toxic. We acknowledged that it was toxic and then all of a sudden tried it all over again because well, now we know that we should be able to overcome this. No.
Yeah, that didn't work, did it?
Well, it seemed like it did for a little while, for sure.
Yeah, the insight that I got on that is sometimes we're with people to teach us a lesson, and they teach us that lesson, and that's their job. That's like, it was a story, and I don't remember where it came from, but it was oh, I know, it was this. I remember Union. So it was the Jesus and Mary Magdalena story, and it's a really beautiful book. If you've never read it, it's very poetic. But the gist was that all of the characters in that story actually got together before they incarnated into this lifetime and said, "Okay, this is how it's going to go down this lifetime." And like Judas said, "No way! Like I can't. like this does not seem like a good idea." But he said, "Okay, if this is the way it has to go down, I love you so much that I'm gonna play this character in this lifetime so you can fulfill this prophecy, whatever this is."
Right.
And so in these bad relationships that I had, it appeared to me like this person was so toxic in my life and so horrible, but when I could take a look at it from a higher perspective, they had to do all those toxic, horrible things so I could come to an understanding of self-love even deeper than I had experienced before the relationship.
Right.
Yeah. No, I was in a seriously emotionally abusive relationship, so it was really, really bad, and I just
Were you
felt
dating
my
a
life.
narcissist?
Yeah. So that's another thing that we can we can talk about in a little bit. But it was, yeah, he was definitely a narcissist. And the more I did for him, the worse he treated me, and the more I tried to be good, the more he would tell me how bad I was. And
Of course, because that was producing more. It was getting more,
yeah, it was
more of the attention, more of the energy from you, more of your self-esteem was eroding, which meant that you needed to attach to his ego to, yeah, it's, I just had a recent, I kind of interrupted you there, but,
okay.
in the narcissist, I just had a long conversation about somebody who was going through it with a narcissist. And, I just wanted to say like how it's one of those things that you may not know. And there's so many things in life that can mimic what narcissism is. So you would just be well adjusted to some of the traits of what a full narcissist is. It's a whole list of traits that really have to check off to say, yeah, that somebody is a narcissist. It's not just, oh, well, this person is an A-type personality, or this person just wants the best in life, or, it is a clinic. To those who don't know, narcissism is a clinical disease. And it can be diagnosed by a professional. I mean, of course, that's the only way that can truly be diagnosed. But we can definitely tell the traits of narcissism. But what happens is one of the things that happens with narcissists is that they tend to use a thing called gaslighting. And what gaslighting does to to an unsuspecting person, or generally, these people are generally the most open people. They're mostly empaths. They're usually giving in every kind of way and loving. And what happens is this person basically deprograms them and reprograms them in a way that they are no longer good to themselves. And they tend to find that they have anxiety is one of the biggest things that comes from it, as well as self-loathing. And as well, to me, the absolute pits of it all is that you learn to not trust your own intuition. And basically, I mean, spiritually, it just makes a mess of you. And you may not know it's going on. And that's what makes this so dangerous. And so, it's kind of, I'm going to say it's a zeitgeist term now, but a lot of people are talking about narcissism as of late. Apparently, I mean, maybe our society is breeding them, because it can be a genetic state and it can also be a learned state. A lot of it has to do, it can be directly genetic, but it can also just be learned by environments and the way a child is brought up.
Yeah. Yeah. And a trauma, I think, as well.
Oh,
but
for sure.
Yeah, there was, I did feel it was definitely the most, yeah, it was the most emotionally abusive than I've ever been in a relationship, to the max. But what happened when I got to my lowest point, like I was in a corner, and he was yelling at me, he was screaming at me, and I was like curled up in a ball, and I was rocking back and forth, and I was like, help me, somebody help me, somebody help me. I'm like, I need help now. And all of a sudden I heard this voice, and it said, you are safe and you are loved, and we are here with you. You are safe and you are loved, and we are here with you. Everything's going to be okay. And all of a sudden my mind got quiet, and I stood up and I walked out of the room, and I just walked into another room, and he tried to like yell at me, but it wasn't working. Like he could tell that it wasn't hitting me the same way. And it was that moment that I said, okay, like you need to love yourself, and you need to figure out how, because you're going to die. Like if you don't, like this is it. Like this is it. You need to figure out how to love yourself. And so I ended up writing out what I wanted to hear from a partner, because I had been with him. He had love bombed me, like he was going to give me the most love in the world, right? And then I think I moved to be with him, and like 3 days into the relationship, that's when it all started. And I didn't want anyone to know. Like I felt embarrassed, and but anyway, so it went on for a while. But in that moment, that I realized I needed to learn how to love myself, I wrote down everything that I had wanted to hear from him. Like, I love your voice. I love, like, everything that he was saying to me. Like, he goes, you smell weird. Like, people wouldn't like you if they know who you are. Like, you can't do healing as well as I can. Like, you're like all these things that were like the opposite of what was actually true. I sat down and I said, okay, these are the things that he's saying, so the opposite is true. And so I wrote down all the things, and then I created an audio called I Love You. And the audio was for me to listen to whenever I forgot what the truth was, because he was telling me all these lies.
I love that.
And so I actually posted it. I was talking to a friend, Rick, because we had talked about this project a long time ago, before I was even in that relationship. And I said, Rick, I'm like, I figured out, like, I finally did it. And so he helped me put it on YouTube. And he put it on his page, and it got like something like 10,000 views or something, like within within like a month or something like that. But it was for me. But I realized after we like put it out into the world that other people need it too, you know? And so that's also why I wrote my book, because I needed it. It was something that I needed to remind me of self-love. I needed to know how to come back to myself. But in the times that we write or create, do these creative projects for ourselves, it's helpful for the collective, right? Like everybody, we're all the same on some level. Well, the people who are like me get my work. I guess is a better way to say it. Like, people who have that anxious attachment realize what I'm saying, and they realize, like, oh, that's how you get back from that. That's how you help yourself come back from that anxious attachment, and how to unravel those attachments so you can be present within your own body and love yourself. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect. Not only does it make perfect sense, but as just as you go to a chiropractor when you were injured, and do you think you would have known the little things that he does or she does that have given you some strength back, and as well as dulled the pain, or even given up the pain? Do you think spiritually, when somebody has harmed you, did you not need to seek help the same way? And here you are being that facilitator, that healer, that helper for people who have, and maybe that's not just the only scenario, but this is definitely a scenario. I don't think that most people have the tools to put themselves back together after experiencing something like being with a narcissist for any amount of time, to be honest with you, because most of the damage they do is not visible to the person that it's been done to. They don't see that it's changed the way that they perceive things, also changed the way that their trust level with everything in life. It's not just trust in a relationship. It's whether or not they trust their family or their coworkers or everybody. I've dealt with narcissism in my life too. So, and it's been a little bit gentler, because it wasn't in an intimate relationship. And when I say intimate, I mean like an actual boy-girl relationship. It's a family member who just it does not have a clue that they are harming people around them. But it's a go-to. They use it like like it's their only tool.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it took me a long time to be able to forgive him for what happened. But the way that I finally, and all these words are kind of tricky, because forgiveness implies that something wrong happened. And when I look back on it now, I see it as a blessing, right? Because had I not gone through that extreme experience, I wouldn't have had to love myself so hard. I wouldn't have had to learn how to love myself that hard. And so I feel like, okay, like I went through that, and I became a better person for it, because I had to learn. I had to learn how to get back to myself. And I mean, after that relationship, I was in some more bad relationships. not as bad as that one for sure. But I think each thing taught me how to come back to myself and self love. Like each time, um, it was it was thinking that love was attachment.
Mm.
And I think that's what sometimes TV teaches us, that's what movies teach us, is that if we have an
Right.
attachment to this person, that means we love them. And so we act as if attachment is love. And when that love relationship doesn't work out because we misidentified attachment as love and love is attachment, then we're like, oh, love doesn't work. Love's
Mm.
broken.
Wow. So we mentioned memes earlier. I'm going to add a segment to the show, not this tonight, but it's going to be a meme review.
Nice.
And one of the memes that I saw this week that really like socked it to me was it was actually I've seen it before, but it came back around this week, and it was that love is unconditional, and if it's conditional, it's not love, it's
Right.
something else. And that's what, so attach, the whole relationship of attachment is conditional, and that's not really love. I mean, it may
Right.
seem like it on so many levels, but true love is unconditional, meaning that it doesn't matter what, if a person has to be a specific thing, and when they're not that, you no longer love them. Well, that's not,
Right.
that wasn't love to begin with. That was your attachment to how you think they should be, or what you think they could be. So it's that I don't have the meme right now, but that would definitely be the meme of the week.
Right. And to that, it's like, I forget what you were saying before, but it's like, we get into these relationships and we think, well, why do I pour all of my energy and my love into this person and then they don't reciprocate? And sometimes we project onto another person the person that we want them to be, and we never actually see who they are specifically, because we're like, no, I love them. I love them, and so I'm just gonna like love them, but we don't take the time to actually see who they are, and that's where it gets tricky, because I think I fell in love with people's potential of who they could be.
Oh, for sure. That's a big one in our culture too, because we
Right.
we all have. Funny thing today, like in this culture, and when I mean by this culture, I mean with technology, the information age, where we have all this information, and it's not information is. We have Instagram, Facebook. I'm not going to name them all, but we have all of those,
Right.
and then we have Google, but then we also have television and internet TV and all these things, and we're growing up with these expectations of what people should look like, how they should act, what type of jobs they should have, what they should say when they come in the house to us, and
Right.
how they should respond to things that are going on in our lives. We expect certain things from people, and we're no longer actually living in the moment with these people. We are literally, what do you mean you didn't text me back when I thought you should? I've had somebody text me and have an expectation that I should have answered them while I was at work. Like I should have just stopped what I was doing and picked up a conversation with them. And they were upset with me by the time I came home that I didn't respond before I got home. But I could have stopped, pulled over my car, texted them, but I thought it'd be nicer to drive home and get home to them. But to these expectations, so clearly that person was not in a state of experiencing me or the love language that I was speaking. I heard before we were on the show, I heard you mention love language about somebody else that we were talking about. Are you familiar with the love languages, Joanne, or what
Yeah.
some of that? Could you elaborate on that, since you did bring it up earlier? And I think it really pertains to how we are misinterpreting relationships nowadays by not recognizing that people have different love languages.
Absolutely. And I'm going to try and remember them off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure. So, I forget the guy who wrote the book, but basically there's 5 love languages. And everybody has their own. And so I know there's physical touch, there's gifts. So if you give someone a gift, they feel like that's their love language. Words of affirmation. So telling somebody how good a job they're doing, or how good they are. Where's that? Oh, time. So spending time with somebody. So quality time. Maybe there's only 4. Are there 5? I'm pretty sure.
So yeah, it's 5 love languages. The book was written in 92 by Gary Chapman.
Right.
I know that my my last biggest relationship of 4 years, she tried to get me to read the book while we were together, and I didn't. And I kind of felt like I was like, don't you realize, like, I'm loving you in all these different ways and you're just not acknowledging it? I don't think the book was going to help it. Words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of service.
Acts of service. Yep, that's the other one.
And yeah, I kind of feel bad that I didn't read the book, but I did Google it in the relationship, and I got acquainted with it.
Well, now you know.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right? So if somebody's love language is, let's say, a quality time, and you're giving them gifts and wondering why they don't feel loved. They're like, well, I'm giving you all these gifts. You should feel loved because I'm giving you all this stuff.
Right.
And they're like, no, I just want you to hang out with me. And that's where people run into problems. Or
that's probably been the biggest one for me. Sure.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, and some people have more than one. Like, the thing is, like, I love quality time and I love touch, but I don't care about gifts. If someone gives me a gift, I'm kind of like, thanks. Like, that's not my love language at all. And I'll give someone gifts if that's their love language. But if someone gives me a gift, that doesn't say love to me. Like spending time with me, or like, having massages together, or something like that. Like that signifies love to me. But yeah, gifts are not. But that's why it's important to learn your partner's love language, because so you don't
that's where I failed is she told me what hers was, but that didn't mean that I knew how to interact with it, respect it, or give her what she needed. I just knew, oh, well, that's just the way she wants attention in that type of way. And that didn't tell me at that point. We were so far gone. I was like, well, if I don't have that to give, then I just don't have it to give. And I'm not changing for this at this point. Wish we had done something sooner. I just want to back up.
Were you loving her in your love language?
Oh, for sure. And actually, let's say I was swinging 3, and yeah, like I'm fully involved. We got to do it all, but I'd only got to 3, and the other 2 were what were lacking for her, and those were the 2 that really counted for her. So, but I was unavailable at the time, and it just wasn't right. And unfortunately, sometimes there's limitations to a situation with a person. Sometimes it's resources, sometimes it's time allotment, sometimes work is a play, sometimes another family member can cause a person not to be able to give what the other person wants. And that, but that's where communication really comes into play. I just want to back up for just a second, because we get a comment here from Holly Rose, another good friend of mine. She was going back on gaslighting. I just want to read this because she said, gaslighting is a control tactic used to manipulate others by using deceptive behavior to make them doubt their own sanity. Wow. So it literally can make a person, I would perceive you could probably make a person go insane with this. The term comes from the 1940s movie Gaslight, where the husband makes his wife doubt her own sanity. He dims the gaslights when his wife remarks they are dimmed. He tells her she is imagining it. Oh, wow. Yeah. So if you're really messing with a person's paradigm and their belief system, which, listen, and one of the things is we hear that empaths attract narcissists, but what the real danger is while we're working in the spiritual systems, when first off, most people, when they wake up become aware, become conscious, they're usually in a state of openness. They're usually in a state of pure love. They're usually, some people are still skeptical, which is fine. But we're usually in a state of, here, you can have anything I got, because I'd much rather give than have. And because we recognize something, and what happens is guess who's attracted to that?
Right. People who need it. Exactly.
And that also includes narcissists. So they are attracted to spiritually conscious people like moths. And I think we've mentioned this a little bit in past shows, that moths and butterflies are both attracted to light. And they're both very similar and can look, heck, some I think some of the some moths are more beautiful than most butterflies. But what happens is, and I know moths are getting a bad rap here in this one, they're playing the bad role for us this time, is that we will attract both of them as healers, as conscious people who are in that state of giving. But the key for us is to start learning to say no. No, I'm not going to accept a moth. No, I don't want a moth. No, I'm not a moth person. I'm a butterfly person, and I'm here to spend my time with butterflies. So one is you have to learn to be discerning of the two. And this is not spiritual segregation. This is not spiritual discrimination. That's not what this is. This is alignment. This is finding what's right for you and becoming in harmony with that and becoming that particular butterfly person. And the reason for that is once you start saying no, you're going to have more butterflies showing up and less moths. The moths are going to recognize they can't get fed there. This light is detrimental. It's not only it just doesn't give them attention, especially. That's the light that moths crave. That's what narcissists want, is they want your energy. They want your attention in all ways. And if you're not giving it to them, they've got no choice but to move on. Now, they may scream, kick, shout, and all this other stuff, but I find the sooner that we get to it, the sooner we rip that Band-Aid off, the sooner that we recognize, hey, this is what this is, and I'm not a moth person. Like you put your foot down, and it's not just putting your foot down. It's really the willingness to not go on board, to not accept it whatsoever. And that's a struggle. And when I say a struggle, it's not a bad struggle. Walking uphill is a struggle. Doesn't matter how fit you are. It's more of a struggle than walking on flat. So it's the same thing. You have to go through that struggle for the benefit of your own self, to prove to the universe that's what you'd like in your life. You would like butterfly people. You want to be a butterfly person. You want to speak butterfly language. That means you have to put away all moths, all moth things. You can no longer attract that into, otherwise you're bound to say, oh, look at this beautiful butterfly. And it's not, it's just another moth that looks very pretty. And, so learning to say no, like I love the title of your book, which is Moving On and Letting Go. It's it's so appropriate.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I had the attitude of like, that's it. I'm not dating any more F boys. Like, forget it.
We curse on you. You're allowed to, but good catch.
Right? I've done a lot of them, but like, what I realized is when I had the energy of like, no, like I'm not gonna, then there was just like a parade of them that would just come into my life. But when I decided to choose for me, I decided to choose to love myself, and this is fabulous. So, and this came out of a few things. So one of them was, there's an author called Sark, and she wrote a book called Succulent Wild Woman. And in that book, she talks about self-love in a really interesting way. And she's like, she goes, I used to take myself out on dates, and like, she wrote another book called Eat Mangoes Naked. But she,
she's got to be a Cancer.
she's she's really fun. She's really an amazing person. But from her, I learned about like taking myself out on dates and learning to love myself in a different way and treating myself like I was the partner's, because I was so used to like pouring my love into someone else, and I didn't know how to give that love to myself. I had to create this experience of taking myself out on a date and like loving myself the way I would love someone else. And it was hard. It was hard at the beginning because I just wasn't used to that.
Sure.
People are like, well, you just got to love yourself. And I was like, how? Like, how do you do that? And they're like, well, you just do. I'm like, that is not good enough for me. I'm like, I need specific steps on what that looks like because I have no idea. And so that was part of it. The first time I did it, I was living in this retreat center called Isis Oasis, and I was living in this little
Sounds wonderful. Just by the name.
Kind of. It was run by this kind of tyrant woman. So it wasn't as fun as it could have been. But we lived in these little trailers, and there was one trailer we could go to that was for guests sometimes. But if there wasn't any guests, we could go into this bigger trailer, and it had more room. And so I went to the local store, and I got wine, and I got bread and cheese, and I watched a movie, like a girly movie that I only would like. And then I put on music, and I danced with myself, and I just danced and danced and danced. And I looked in the mirror, and I looked into my eyes, and I said, you are beautiful. And it was that moment, like, it was a recognition of my soul and my body that I really accepted myself, and I loved myself, like, passionately in that moment. And I just felt safe. And I think a lot of my life, I didn't quite feel safe with myself because I was always like, you're too fat, you're not good enough, you're not, you need to do this and you're not doing that. And I was so hard on myself. And in that moment, it was just pure love and pure acceptance and fun, And I didn't have that before. And I think little by little, as I get older, I give myself more of a break. And, I try and make myself feel comfortable and safe to be in my body. Maybe my body's not perfect. Maybe by whoever's standards.
There you go. There you go.
Right? But I love it. This is the body that I have this lifetime. And if I want to change it into something else, we'll co-create that together. Me and my body. But
love it.
Me and my body, we're in it until death do us part. This body is my soulmate. It's the reason I get here to be.
Yes,
here
it is.
lifetime.
It is definitely your soulmate. And it's a lot of something that most people may have yet to come to the realization that we are our own soulmates. Our soul exists in one space and our body exists in another, but yet they're connected. That's what a mate is.
Right?
But so is your spirit. So your spirit to your body and your spirit to your soul are also. So yes, we do have multiple soulmates just within our own self. And it's a wonderful thing when you come to acknowledge it because of the beauty that it creates. Not only, I shouldn't just say the beauty that it creates, but the acknowledgement of a full relationship. And it's kind of like it's a chain reaction once you recognize yourself with love, because we can go, I went for a very long time without self-love. And I can literally go to having done some work, I can go to the very point where I lost my own self-love at a very early age. And I don't want to say somebody took it from me, but I let them take it from me. And I just didn't know any better. And I didn't know what happened, but it was so trajectory changing for my whole life from that moment. And it was just a simple thing. And it was a kid who humiliated me on a playground at the age of 4 or 5. And I carried that with me for years until I recognized that that was a huge source of trauma and an open wound that had caused me to perceive myself in a less than state when it came to other people. And when I say, not that I'm superior in any way, but I always felt less than. I always perceived everybody else from a state of being less than. And not on an equal playing field, not that I needed to look down on anybody, but it's just not the state that you want to be perceiving yourself. For some reason, I'd always start with, how do I get to where that person's at?
Right.
Not acknowledging that I like where they're at. And if I can see where they're at, that means I'm in a good place. And the fact that I'm acknowledging what I like in them is that I'm capable of seeing that from where I'm at. That's the way I would look at it today when I admire somebody or admonish somebody, is rather than point it at them, I tend to look at myself and say, I'm thankful to be me today. And I'm grateful for the gifts that I have, no matter how changing they are, my body changing, my mind changing, or just aging. I'm grateful for those experiences now because they all have value. There's value in aging. There's value in changing. One is, like we talked about earlier, is looking back at the self when I thought I was fat and I was in great shape. I was probably like 6.5% body fat. I'd gone from 4.5 to 6.5% body fat, which is, close to an Olympic athlete. Or even an Olympic runner. Well, they don't run on 6% body fat, but they wish they did, because that's how they can run long distances. Anyway, I'm jumping off topic here. My point is magic happens in a chain reaction state when we activate self-love. And for those of you out there who are seeking soulmates, who are seeking the twin flame experience, which we'll talk about in depth on another show. But if you're seeking those types of experiences, the fastest, quickest way to get there is through self-love, period. Because you're looking to mirror something that is within yourself. And is connected through yourself. That's what a soulmate is. I mean, it's connected to your soul. And if it's connected to your soul, then it's connected to you through your spirit and your body. And you have to have a connection with self to even actualize a twin flame. They can be there. They can be around. They can be hovering. They can even be in your life, but you're not in that full state of experiencing and actualizing what is the soul state, the soul duality state. So a lot of times we always just say soulmate, but there are different layers of that. And I realize I'm going to get into the soulmate stuff in another episode. But one of the things that I find that when it comes to loving ourselves is, and the same thing with a soulmate that we find in lacking, is that there are different versions of the soulmate. And what I mean by that is they may be in the same person, but they may show up as a whole, or they may show up in a dichotomy. And it's the same thing with ourselves, where we don't accept the dark side to ourselves, or we don't accept the good side, because there are some bad people who won't accept that they're good or that they have any good in them. And vice versa, where I know for years, I was so used to putting myself down that I felt like I had to be good in everything. And when I say good, I mean moralist, like I had to be, do what was right. And I couldn't do what was wrong. I couldn't lie. I couldn't tell a lie. And even to the point where I would humiliate people because I'm not telling a lie. It's just against my morals. But the difference between me today is I accepted all aspects of myself, and the good with the bad. And that's when you become a whole person. That's what being a whole person is. And we believe in a holistic approach to consciousness here at Awake and Aware, in the Awake and Aware community. And so when you accept yourself, and that doesn't mean that I have to go rob a bank to prove that I'm bad. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I recognize there are traits in myself. I might even have a thought that is not, instead of beating myself up, I just accept that as for who I am, and also have the ability to know I don't have to act out on those thoughts. I'm not saying there's something wrong with me because I had those thoughts. I'm acceptant of who I am. And when you do that, when you become acceptant of who you are, and that allows you to heal grateful. A great amount of healing happens just when you accept the side of yourself that's the undesirable side. You know, I know that I have a better looking side than a different side. Like some people feel that way. You know, I have, I'm right hand dominant over my left. And so in most things, I prefer my right hand. And I know these seem simple, but I'm also grateful for my left hand and what my left hand's capable of. And some of you guys, I shared, a couple years ago in another show about the left right hand dominant thing. Once I did that, my left hand became more cognizant, more skillful. I started using my left hand more. I'm almost ambidextrous today. And this came from where I had a really weak left hand. Like I could lift weights with it. I could pound it on something, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't nail a hammer with it if I wanted to. I would break my gums brushing my teeth with my left hand, you know, like, cause I would just, really get in and start banging the toothbrush against my gums. And I realized like I had never taken the time to actualize that my left hand was even a thing. It just did what it did. And I never spent any time, adding skill to it in the way that it needed. And I became a much more whole person because of that. The way that I can write, the way that I'm balanced, like physically balanced. I can use my left hand to catch things. I can catch and throw with my left hand. These are things that I never fathomed that I'd be able to do in life. And it only came from acknowledging even that I had a left hand. And I know that sounds so simple, but it wasn't for me. And then, so we got a Jasmine here said, that's deep. This body is my soulmate. Damn it. Love it. Exactly. You have to love all of it, you know, and even when something's wrong with it, or if you get a bad haircut, guess what? Love the bad haircut. Like, and accept the bad haircut. Don't beat yourself up for getting it.
I think
no, please go ahead. No, go ahead.
You know, when you finally come to a place of your body being your soulmate, it makes you indestructible. Like, you were saying before, just say no to the bad people who, or the fuck boys who come into your life. You just have to say no to them. But there's like this switch that gets turned on once you start focusing in on yourself and loving yourself the way that you would love a lover or a partner, and you start loving yourself in that way, and not just self-love, like that self-love, but like actually giving yourself your love language, right?
Yes.
Like, let's say you would give a partner, presents, or you would tell them, like, it's so interesting. So what I do, my internal tape loop used to be, like, I suck, I'm not good enough, like, I'm fat or whatever. Oh, before I forget, there was this meme that said, how much did Rosa Parks weigh when she, sat on the bus? And how much did Frida Kahlo weigh when she painted all the paintings? And how much, did someone else weigh when they did whatever?
Sure, right.
Like,
how much did Venus Williams weigh, right?
Right. And do you know? No? Oh, it didn't matter? Right.
Exactly.
So do your fucking work.
Love it.
Do what you need to do and get over it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter, but I think we hold ourselves back and we tell our body, like, oh, you're not good enough to do the things that you want to do because of this, that, or the other. But once we unconditionally accept ourselves and we give ourselves that extreme love that we've been putting out into those partners that maybe weren't able to accept the love that we had to give. And to that end, I also want to add, like, that one really abusive relationship I was in, like, I would rub his feet all the time. And what I realized, I said, no amount of rubbing his feet is going to make my feet feel better. I was right. I was trying to give him the love that I was needing
You were
to
craving.
give to myself.
Mm.
Yeah. And so I was giving him all the things, and it was like, I was like, look, I'm giving you this because I need it. I'm giving you that because I need it. And so I was giving him all the things that I need to give to myself. And once I started giving that kind of love to myself and honoring it, and like saying to myself on a tape loop every day, like, I love you. I love you so much. Like, you are safe and you are loved, and I love you, and everything's okay. And so that's my internal tape loop now. Whereas before I was beating myself up all the time, I realized like I needed to stop that and create a new internal tape loop. There's a book called The Prospering Power of Love by Catherine Ponder that someone gave me a long time ago when I was traveling. I think I just got back from Ireland, and I was couch surfing at the time, and she's like, oh, I think you could really use this book. And it's about using affirmations. And so the affirmation that I picked was your divine love. Divine love is flowing to me and through me now. I am divine love. I am divine love. Divine love is flowing to me and through me now. And so by saying that again and again, what it started to do was it started to break down that negative tape loop that was in my head. And sometimes I would cry. Sometimes, I was resistant to it, but I kept saying it over and over, like many, many, many times a day. And what started happening was I started shifting into divine love. And people would stop me in the street and be like, who are you?
Are you glowing?
Yeah. And I actually met, I was married at one point in time, but I met my husband at a grocery store. And he was like, you were glowing. He goes, you were absolutely glowing. And he's like, when you walk into a room, he's like, people notice. And then when you leave, like, they're just not as happy because you're not there. And I was just like, how interesting. Like, that a shift in your own internal dialogue of a shift to loving yourself as much as you love others can change your entire life. And it can change your frequency. And just like you were saying about the music before, like, music shifts your frequency just as much as the words that you say to yourself do. And so it's really important what you listen to musically and vocally, what you're saying to yourself on a consistent basis, because your body's listening,
I think,
your soul's listening.
Jerry Garcia said it in Scarlet Begonias. Actually, it might have been Phil Lesh. I'm not sure who sings it. No, it's Jerry. No, see, I don't know. But the band is the Grateful Dead, and the song is Scarlet Begonias. And the line is, sometimes we get shown the light in the strangest of places when we look at it right. And it's one of those things that it kind of stuck around with me for a few years. And so an uncle of mine used to sing that. Like, it's a good song. I'm not the biggest Grateful Dead fan. I'm not a fan. I'm not a Deadhead.
Right.
And, but when I first heard that, I was like, but sometimes the best ones sometimes we get shown the light in the strangest of places when we look at it right. And that's what like escaped me is that I was like, yeah, but I thought I was enlightened at that point, and I still had some ego for sure. Listen, enlightenment is not the beginning. It is just the beginning. Honestly, right. The path goes so much further than waking up, and so many people are worried about reaching enlightenment. Yeah, well, guess what? That's like getting to the airport. Or actually, that's like getting in the cab to the airport. You still got a long way to go.
There was a book I read. It was called After Enlightenment, The Laundry.
Oh, so I love that. Exactly, because that sums it up really. Right. I might switch to that, because the way I heard it was before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After right. Enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. But the laundry never stops. Right. Never stops. Yeah, there's got laundry to do. As a matter of fact, laundry may be the bane of my existence. No, it's not that bad, but I do know that, like, I have an issue. I have no problems washing clothes. I have no problems drying clothes. I have a problem folding clothes and putting them away. And I think for me personally, it's one of the first jobs I had was at JCPenney's, and I was the manager of the bed and bath department. And if you can't imagine how many towels we had to fold every day, every night, and to the point where I felt like my fingers were going to bleed sometimes because the cotton had absorbed all of the, like I would literally get like blood cuticle,
oh my God.
because, and like hangnails and not hangnails, but little skin rips and things like that from my hands drying out, and lotion didn't do anything to solve that. So I got to a point where I just felt, I don't enjoy this anymore. This is not something that I really want to do. So I don't feel the incentive for doing it. And then so I bought I have a cedar dresser. If anybody knows about cedar, it's anti-moth. That's how you get butterflies. And I thought it was gonna be the greatest thing ever. I was like, oh, cedar, this is gonna be great. I hate the way it makes my clothes smell. So I only put the old stuff, and it just gets even worse. And then I wind up just donating it or throwing it away. So if I fold clothes and put it in my dresser and leave it in there, it's done. So till I need to get a new dresser. That's the ultimate state is I can't live like that. But I mostly hang everything up, but I don't hang up, socks, and things like that. So I keep that, I have multiple laundry baskets. They're all clean clothes. But that's how I'm living right now. So, and I don't necessarily think that's probably my best self. It's just a patch on something that needs to be, and ultimately what it is I should just buy a new dresser. That's really where I'm at. Something that's more in alignment with Pine, maybe.
Yeah. Sell it on Facebook and use that money to get a fancy dresser you like.
I actually had a cedar closet once. I should have remembered. Oh, just as bad as the, so it's something that I thought I'd really like. And I enjoy the smell of cedar. I just don't want my clothes to smell like it. It's not, to me, they smell dirty even when they're clean.
Man.
It was way off topic.
Well, you wouldn't know until you tried it. At least now you know.
Facts. Well, so the older generation in my family would have died to have cedar furniture. Like they thought, because they had this fear of moths. Like my older my great aunts and great uncles, they feared moths. Like when I mean like to the point where they kept mothballs in their shoes, in their purses. I mean, if you went in one of my great aunt's closets, I promise you, I got a great aunt today. I know she smells like mothballs.
Aww.
I hate to call her out, but she knows it's true.
See, one of your ancestors probably told you to get that cedar dresser.
It's butterfly stuff. It's something that butterfly people do. We have cedar dressers. That's what it is.
It must be true.
Jeez.
Well, now that we've come full circle.
Well, that's the life of the butterfly. Yeah, it becomes butterfly food for the caterpillar.
Right. I'm in. I'm ready for some butterfly time.
I think we all are. Like, listen, we've been doing the work, and I say our whole community. I see y'all out there. I know the people that are in this community, and are attracted to this type of information, what the show is about. One of the things is like, this is something I needed for myself. And I don't just mean sitting in this chair in front of the microphone. Like, there's not a lot of outlets for us. There's a lot of fugazi stuff out there. There really is. Like, I'm not going to name any names, but there is so much stuff out there right now that is not kicking any spiritual truth or is not in any kind of true alignment. It's just sounds Gucci and sells books, or not just books, but like it's just not good. It really isn't. It's aligned with huge conglomerate stuff I'm talking about, but I'm not pleased with it. But it's okay. I don't focus my energy there, but it is out there. And I was just hoping that like we could connect. And I know that I've had so many hurdles at different stages. And one of the things that I learned at an early age growing up with cabinet makers and construction workers is that the fastest way to like, if I were to come on a job site and I didn't know how to do whatever the project was to go find the guy who's been doing it for 25 years and learn from him. And also, but I knew that if I sat down and tried to pick his brain, I'm stopping him from what he's doing. So I would tend to look for the things that they look like shortcuts, but they're not. Like if you watch an experienced carpenter, no carpenter bangs a nail in with one swing. That's just not how it works. But he can do it in 2 or 3 very easily. And that's because he has experience and he knows what to do. I would look for things like that. That's not a shortcut. That's experience. And I learned how to mimic experience until it became my own. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to start out being good at anything. You're going to fall at it. But what happens is you're doing the best. You're working on doing the best. These people that have learned through experience, they're doing what comes from years of experience, and mimicking that. You can learn that from somebody else. And what I mean is you don't have to go through all the pain and suffering that's necessary when you learn from our past, from our elders, from the experience that existed for us. Joanna and I had a great length discussion earlier about knowledge being transferred down to new generations, and how is it what's necessary to keep us healthy as a generation, or is it also, do we have to like give away some of the old to get better or to be even safe, and I don't think either one of us really came. I mean, we had a great discussion and, a lot of back and forth on it. And I don't think we came to a very one-sided thing that said one is better than the other. I think we're still kind of like, we're going to have to wait and see. But I think that's been what's been going on since the beginning of time.
Right.
Because, we were, I know I was at odds with the way that I was, and that I thought I proceeded, that I needed to be to my parents. That was I was the black sheep, like to everybody in my family. What I knew that I needed to do for my peace of mind was completely out of alignment with what they were doing. And I just felt like, this is not for me. I can't do it. Like I knew that it was going against every fiber of my being. So I had to I had to shun some of their tradition and some of their ritual. And today that makes me who I am today. Now, if I'm a value to anybody or even to myself, I think that there's a lot that I've experienced that I would not have experienced if I had just followed in my father's footsteps or my mother's footsteps. I'm a completely different person, even though I am 100% the two of them put together. But I think I've now evolved. I think together they made me a caterpillar. I think my experience on my own is what made me a butterfly.
Yeah.
So I think that's how we grow and elevate our frequency as a community, is honoring each other for our faults because all our faults and flaws are they're not faults and flaws. They're just different things that serve different things in different time. Give you an example. Weeds aren't weeds. They're plants. They're wildflowers. It's just the only thing that deems something a weed is when it's undesirable by a person who owns the garden. That's it. So, I drink dandelion tea quite often. Most people hate dandelions in their lawn. I love them. I like to pick them up. I like to blow the seeds. And I know people hate that because that means they're getting dandelions in their lawn. But I'm that guy.
I like to saute dandelion leaves with balsamic vinegar.
Oh,
It's
you're
really
talking my language.
amazing.
You were talking
Right?
my language.
Yeah.
Dandelion salad is so for those people who know or don't know, I have hypertension and I have extreme high blood pressure that came about from extreme caffeine consumption. Is one thing that led up to it. My blood pressure is under check now, and I'm doing real well, and that's a lot of dealing with caffeine and stopping my pot a day coffee addiction. But one of the things that helped with that was dandelions. So dandelion tea, dandelion salad. And just so you guys know, we're not eating the flowers. It's the dandelion. You can eat the flowers, but it's the greens.
I heard people fry them up like fritters, dandelion flower fritters.
That sounds amazing. So I've eaten a dandelion. I've had to experience it. I've picked up the flower. I've eaten it. And I don't mean dried. I've eaten a yellow flower come spring. and taking a bite of it. And it's kind of like eating broccoli, but not as rough or not as hard. It's kind of, like if it's not it doesn't have the bitter taste of broccoli, but it's a softer consistency of like broccoli. It's like, man, I got to get through this to enjoy the aftertaste.
I grew broccoli this year in my garden.
Ooh, nice.
And it was actually sweet tasting. I was amazed. Like,
yeah, soil makes a difference.
Yeah, I used really good soil. Like, people were like, "Oh my God, your garden was amazing. Like, did you have to worry about aphids or bugs or anything?"
For broccoli's pretty hardy. I know frost can beat it up pretty good though.
Yeah, it's still going, and the kale that I'm growing is still growing.
That's a
as
hardy
well.
one too.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I like to pick stuff that I can't kill.
Well, so the beauty of that is broccoli. From what I understand in the research that's been done, the only thing known to man that does not cause cancer is broccoli, meaning that at some level, if you were to overconsume anything, it will eventually cause cancer in your body. But you could eat an elephant's worth of broccoli and it would not do anything to you. So that means there's something going on with broccoli that's different than anything else. And it's also higher in protein and it's also higher in iron. And then the same thing with kale. Kale is a super hardy vegetable. And it's a superfood for that reason, because it fits so many categories. Broccoli, unfortunately, is not a superfood. But it's up there. It's pretty darn close. I think the two of those you chose very well to put in your garden. And if you're growing them, man, you got a green thumb, because they're not the easiest plants to, even though you would think they would be as tough as they are, they do require some love.
They grew really well, and I couldn't keep up with them, but I made a lot of kale tips, they were so great. I found some sriracha seasoning.
Ooh, that sounds
powder,
amazing.
right?
I'm gonna need a link to that.
Even just salt and pepper, I made them, and they were so good. They were so good. But yeah, all part of taking care of ourselves, right?
Absolutely. So we've talked about this in previous episodes, about nutrient dense food and food that's still living. And, kale is absolutely, barring some deep seaweeds, kale is probably the best vegetable on the planet that we have, super access to. As far as nutrient dense food, it's probably not until you get to like some sea kelps and some other things that don't really taste all that good. And boy, you got to be bold to put them in a salad if you can eat this stuff. But juicing is where it's at, or eating it in a powder. But nutrient dense, there's nothing better than certain types of seaweed that grow in the ocean. But barring that, is kale. Kale is probably the world's most quite perfect food, even though it's pretty hard on the gut.
Right? Yeah, I learned a lot about kale. I guess you have to like massage it with oil first, and then you can eat it.
Oh, you make me hungry now.
Like, it's a whole big thing. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I lived in Maine. I lived at this place where they harvested seaweed from the ocean.
That's it. That's exactly, because it's not in the fishing lanes, and it's perfect place to harvest it from.
Yeah, it was a whole big experience. But I was there and I helped them make a seaweed cookbook. So there is a lot of yummy ways to make seaweed.
Oh yeah. It's not something that you just want to eat raw. I mean, people do. You got to be. Yeah, we're talking about naturists now.
But you know what you can? Dulse. Dulse is the red kind of seaweed. If you fry it up, it's kind of like bacon.
Oh yeah, no. I think there's all different kinds of that. This comes with that experience. As people who've there are experienced ways of dealing with seaweed and cooking seaweed, and preparing it to eat it raw, also dried out. Of course, the Japanese people have been doing amazing things with seaweed and kelp for centuries now. but there also a lot of that is still, it's kind of processed. It's not what we're talking about. This is living live food that has phytonutrients galore, the best nutrients in the world, period, for energy, for your mind, your body. I'm not going to plug a company, but I used to work for a company that was sold a product that was just aloe and phytonutrient dense seaweed and kelp.
Oh, nice.
And this stuff, listen, you take a sip of it and I could see the color green, brighter, more vibrant than I've ever seen in my life. The first sip I had of this, I felt that different. Like it was just life changing. And I mean, there's tons of, if you just Google kelp, sea kelp, and aloe vera, you'll eventually find this product. It's out there. It's been around for a while. It's a privately run product, and it is a multi-level marketing company, and that's why I wouldn't dare to say what the name of it is.
Yeah.
But it's on the up and up. It's not. It's just that's the business model that they chose to do. You could also just find the stuff yourself and eat it or consume it in shakes. But it's something that it also comes in a juice. Like you can actually find kelp and seaweed juice. And again, does not taste good at all on its own. Most people probably couldn't palate it. But if you mix it with something, it's fine. You know, a lot of times, I think the biggest thing most people mix it with is cherry juice. Tends to cut the flavor completely. And it doesn't take a lot. Like we're not talking, you don't need to eat a salad of this. We're talking about the equivalent of a shot can be life-changing to people. Like it can reprogram your DNA, that kind of, you know, these are teaching plants too. Like these are the things that can teach your body and your from a, what do we call it? A cellular level.
Oh man. Yeah.
I think it's really cool that you worked in that industry.
Yeah. I did something called a dieta, which is you pick certain plants and you ask them to become a part of your body so they can work with you.
You're talking my language.
Yeah. But what I realized after it was kind of sprung on me and I just did it without thinking about it. But then it was I realized I have spent so many years getting my mind quiet and having my own consciousness, that having other consciousnesses in my brain that I invited there was not that great of an idea.
So I call it muddling the mixture. Yes.
Yeah, it was like, too much spirulina in your smoothie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
right. So I actually there's something called I do a lot of different energy consciousness healing with people, energy work, and one of the things that you can do is you can rescind, revoke, recant, renounce, destroy, and uncreate all contracts, oaths, and agreements. And I said, hey guys,
like that. I need you to repeat that for everybody slower, because that was a super powerful statement right there.
Yeah. So a lot of lifetimes, and even this lifetime, we create contracts, oaths, and agreements with people, with situations, with let's say if you in another lifetime made a vow of poverty or chastity or whatever, and you just thought that would be a great idea to just take into all of your lifetimes, but it's really not working for you this lifetime.
Right.
You can say, I rescind, revoke, recant, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate all contracts, oaths, and agreements, blood oaths, any kinds of oaths, and I destroy and uncreate it all. So what that does is it goes into the point where you created it in this lifetime, any dimension, reality or non-reality, and you just undo it. you undo all the things. And so there's so many people doing ayahuasca, there's so many people doing these dietas, and there's so many people having psychotic breaks and like not knowing what to do with all this energy and all of these things that are talking to them. Like, you're sharing your body, you made an agreement with these plants to share your body, and so you're kind of like, I could feel my consciousness fighting to just be me, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's silly. That's really silly. And so I said, hey, Lance, I love you, and I will contact you on your own terms. Like, you can be outside of my body and we can have a conversation.
For sure.
But I don't think I want to have these other consciousnesses in my head consistently. Like, I would say that that's probably a much more sound way of being. And like, I don't want to scare anybody or anything, but yeah, man, like, there are people don't understand. They can be worn like a coat when it comes to higher level consciousnesses. We're human beings are up there in the grand reality of conscious, except we ain't the end all be all of nothing. This is an experience, and it doesn't matter how long you think this is a very short experience in the grand scheme of things. And, humans, our human level consciousness is so based in physicality, usually, that, the true spiritual world is well beyond our physical world, that we could barely fathom it in the physical world. Like, let me give you an example. And the reason I want to give an example is because I don't want to be like, oh, people can wear you like a coat, or, you're being possessed or anything like that. What it is we as human beings don't even contemplate true thoughts or true ideas. Ideas are much more vast than we give them. We think, oh, I had an idea. I'm going to walk to the store and get a brand new saw so I can build a birdhouse. That's not an idea. That's a bunch of thoughts that are strung together with very little structure that only has meaning because you have an end result in mind. An idea is the saw, but the saw, that is everything that is in existence with the saw. That means the teeth, the metal, the wooden handle, all experience of every saw that has ever sawed anything, whether it's a metal saw, wood saw, diamond saw. I could go on for hours, for days, for weeks and months, just describing what is that, all the things that make up what that saw is. That's an idea. Now, it's so much information for just one thing that it could fill up a supercomputer. If we were to ponder a true idea, it would bog down our brains. We would become inundated with mindless weight, or not mindless weight, but bodiless weight, which is information. And information has weight. As a matter of fact, in science today, we are now weighing information. We recognize that it does have weight. And there's even new theories. They're not actually new, but mainstream science has come to the recognizing that there isn't dark matter, that what's missing in the universe is the weight of all information that's existed at all times. We just view little pieces of it and we take what we need. But in the vast world, when we leave these bodies and other consciousnesses that exist outside can fully fathom ideas in their fullness. That is power that is beyond these bodies. So what we think we're doing, what we think is important to us, what we think is the real deal is just, again, is just the beginning. We are here to experience, and whatever else that you're here for too, you're here for that too. I don't need to tell you what you're here for. But know that we are, I think, Neil Tyson and Carl Jung and Carl Sagan and some of these other titans of mind and space have put it poignantly in saying that we're all stardust, and we're out here just we're the most infinitesimal specks
in this grand universe of things that are infinitely you can't even, you see a picture of, here's our sun, here's the next biggest sun and the next biggest sun. You can't even fathom the fact that that next biggest sun, you could not send a camera out to get around it, to see a whole picture of it in your lifetime. It would be stuck going around in orbit and would never make it around in your lifetime. So you can never see the other side. For all you know, it's not even round. And then the next size sun up would take your whole generational family to even try to get around it in that same thing. It couldn't do it. So then the next size sun up, which is not even, we're not even at the large sun. Your entire human race in the entire time that it's been alive couldn't make it around that sun in the speed of space at 27,000 miles per hour, or whatever speed you want to go at, unless it's moving at the speed of light. You could never make it around it. It's just, and guess what? There's trillions of those things.
Right.
And here we are worried about, who blew their horn at us at the stoplight. And like how that's a real problem. And, so a lot of our problems are lofty and overweight, but really have no true bearing or meaning, other than what we're giving it energy to. Now I understand that can be real as can be.
That's we've been talking for 2 hours, so I'll wrap
I've
it up
noticed
a little
that.
bit.
For sure.
But because we're chatty. Thanks guys for listening to us.
Absolutely.
But the one thing that I want to leave you on is that we are so powerful with our consciousness and with what we create with our thoughts. And,
yes.
With our thoughts, that's what creates our actions. But there's so many people that are focused on what they don't want right now and fighting against whatever. Like, when you fight against whatever, it actually takes the power away from you. Like, when you're trying to fight against whatever it is, it doesn't give you the power. But what does give you the power is creating your reality and creating your world. And so if you want a better world, you have to start thinking about what that looks like, not what you don't want it to look like, because that will feed whatever that is that you don't want. But think about the life that you want to create. What kind of world do you want to create? What kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of relationships do you want to have? And I think a lot of people get stuck in the same repeating cycles because they're like, well, I don't want that, and I don't want that, and I don't want all these things. And I said, okay, what do you want? And start creating from that space. If you want a better world, you have to think about what is that world that you want to create, and think about that every day. What's the relationship? This is the best, absolute best thing that you can do if you want a relationship in your life is make a list of all the things that you want your partner to be, like down to the last thing that you can possibly think of, and make a list as long as you can possibly make it, and then be all those things. So take it one step by one step and say, okay, I want a partner who is loving and kind, and say, okay, like, how can I be more loving and kind to myself? I want a partner who shows up and brings me flowers. Well, how can you show up and bring yourself flowers? Like, what kind of flowers do you want? Buy them for yourself. You want somebody to take you out on a date. Like, I just went and I saw these Christmas lights the other day, and I took myself out on a date. Like, you know what I mean? And so all of those things that you would want a partner to do for yourself, do for yourself. It's create the life that you want to live, and think about that every day, and your life will start to become what you think about every day. And it does, if you think about it.
If I cliched it, said, be the change you want to see. I think
absolutely
Gandhi's words, as well as, in addition, he also said, be for peace, not against war. And I was rolling back to what you had said earlier about how many people are focused on what they don't want. And Gandhi said the two perfect statements that Gandhi said. Mahatma Gandhi said, be for peace, not against war.
Yeah.
Being against war is being part of war. So you're wanting something that you're not part of. And then the other is be the change that you want to see. So as you want to attract something, these are powerful. These aren't just anecdotes. There is universal power in these words that we speak. That is universal, changing the ability to change your whole reality. You know, like Drake said, you start at the bottom, but now you're here. Well, that's because it took some change to get there. I know that I had to take change. I know that I used to be the biggest skeptic, and now I'm the biggest believer. I have manifestation stories that would blow people's minds. And then and not just blow their mind, but like, wow, that's cool. But it's the fact that you can relate to it and do these things yourself and attract scenarios, situations, people. I've dated famous women. I have had big cars. I've lived in multi-million-dollar apartments and condos. I've been on yachts. I've seen many of the gifts that this world has in luxury and beauty, but I've also seen high levels of kindness that just come out of nowhere. I've seen divine beings show up and save my life in times of need. I've been healed. I've seen other people healed. I've seen people who couldn't have children have children, you know, and go from a state where I've seen people beat the big C many times. You know, these are things that normally just can't be explained. The miracle state, or the state of things that are just so out of odds that happen. Whether you believe, try this. Try what we're talking about. Try the mind over matter. Try the affirmations that we talk about. And Joanna, she used the canceling, clearing. I like to say in the small of the moment. I like to say cancel, clear when something I've misspoken or thought of something that is no longer serving me. I tend to cancel, clear. Another thing that I do is I visualize it being, whatever the thing is said or done or action, I visualize it being put into a pot and burned, and watching the embers fly up into space and dissipating with the stars. It's no longer attracting to me anymore. Absolutely loved hers. I would like to get that, type it out, and I will put it in the show notes. This show will be available. We're live, but it'll be available on Facebook shortly afterwards, for anybody that missed it and wants to catch it. I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, the time wise, but they're still going to watch it, and they do watch it. Also, this is going to be on YouTube. In addition to that is moving on in the future. It was short on time this evening, but we're also going to be live on YouTube and Facebook in the coming weeks. So when we do go live, we'll be both live on YouTube and Facebook. I had been building out all the social media and stuff that goes along with the show, and also we'll be starting a group, and in that group we're going to be open to people sharing their spiritual based businesses and promoting themselves. I know a lot of groups frown on that, but I don't. Not at all. I want you, because part of living spiritually is that we're all connected, and I want to be able to support you guys. Just like you guys support me, I want to be able to support the books that you write, the meditations that you create, the yoga that you do, all the things that you do, or if it's the wares that you make, if it's the jewelry that you make, or the crystals that you put in the tumbler, I'd like for you to be able to share that with our community. And that's part of being conscious, that we're all capable of supporting each other. So, Joanna, will you tell people, are people still able to get your book, Moving On and Letting Go?
Yes, sir.
Where can they get that?
So you can go to my website on unfoldinglove.com. And you can find all of the forms there, and that'll bring you through to Amazon. So it's on Amazon and Audible.
Nice.
I've done the audiobook.
Oh, I love that. You had the perfect voice for that.
Thank you.
You should do other people's books too.
I think it took about 5 days for me to record the audiobook.
Wow.
And a friend of mine was like, "Oh, that'll take you 3 months." I'm like, "I don't have 3 months. This is going to take me a short time."
Love that. Commitment, and follow through is probably the most powerful thing that out of all things, I've accomplished everything I've committed myself to.
Yeah.
That's a true.
Yeah.
Every single thing I've committed myself to, I've accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I just, it took me about 5 years to write the book, and complete it. And once I did, I was glad. But I think what happens when you spend so much time focusing on something, it's I was let down a little because I was like, oh no, like I don't have another thing to focus on. Like it's
the
you know what I
vacuum.
mean?
Mm-hmm. For
Yeah,
sure. Yep.
and there was so much, but what my focus is now is I'm going to have weekly classes, weekly video classes, just teaching different techniques like I talked about tonight. Because people like to know like how to release energy cords. They want to know how to get their energy back into their body, how to clear chakras, different stuff like that. And I tried for so many years to fit myself into what people are doing marketing wise for teaching their classes, like these $1,000 classes. And it's not that it's not worth thousands of dollars, but it didn't feel right to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm going to do now is just do a weekly class for $25 a class so that people can afford it. But they still get all of the great content that they need. And then it'll be also recorded so people can come live, and I'll do clearings live. But if they can't come live, then I'll just do, they can buy the recording and then listen to it. But it still works. Like, all of the clearings that I do, if you hear them, either live or recorded, they'll clear your body. And my hope is that people learn this stuff that I'm teaching so that they can do it on themselves and then teach other people how to do it on themselves too. Because I want to create, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's the good energy right there. That's I mean, it's consciousness. It's interdependency. Yes, when you create something that somebody else can create with themselves, absolutely, and they will always come back to consume more. It's not. I remember starting business. I used to say, "Oh, that's the perfect mousetrap. Nobody will come back and buy another mousetrap." You put yourself out of business. That is not the case. People will want your expertise. People will want to share it with other people. People will need advice. So many different things. And that's the beauty of when you're in business, especially conscious spiritual based businesses, you see all the opportunity in just doing it. And if you're meeting a person at a place they can meet you at, like where you said, instead of selling it for the $3,000 and only connecting to people who have that access to that disposable income, there's more people out there, especially that are in need. At a lower price point, which the beauty of it is you can actually facilitate more people now versus, and that I think that's a wonderful thing. But also the fact that you're teaching people to do the same thing that's where the power is. That's when you know that you're that's, in my opinion, that's what makes you an expert.
Yeah. And I struggled so hard. and through the struggle, like I took so many workshops and read so many books and learned so many techniques that I want to be able to distill it down and teach people the highlights of what I know to empower them. Because there was a point in time when I was getting healing from people all the time, and more healings and more healings. But when it really clicked for me is when I internalized how the people were doing healings on me, and I was able to do it for myself.
Nice.
And that was when I felt empowered. And so I want to empower people to be able to do it for themselves. Like, I can clear someone in an hour. Like I can make someone feel amazing in an hour, but they're gonna have to come back.
I could do it in 10 minutes, but they're not going to feel amazing.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I mean, it's the knock on the head kind of thing.
Oh, right.
But yeah,
But
right.
that's, you know what I mean? It's like, I do a lot of spiritual house cleaning, for people's bodies and their houses too. Like,
And I wish people knew how much this is a need. This is a necessity.
Yeah.
This needs to be part of your everyday daily life. Cleansing energy, clearing energy, aligning with better energy, and recognizing when these need to be done. This is not like this is you mentioned earlier, ritual. This is something that our ancestors did religiously, and it's not something that we have in mainstream today. Like it's acceptable. It's fad right now. I know a lot of wealthy people have it done in their homes because they can. But this is something that everybody needs to do in where they live. And this is not just burning sage. You really should check out Joanna's website and check out her services and get in touch with her. She's guys, I realize there's a few people have hung on to us this late, but I know that other people will perceive this. This will be around forever. People will be able to come back and watch this. So I want to share all this information and make sure it's here. But Joanna is a big influence in my life. And it's through Facebook, but it's because I respect what she posts. I respect how she posts it. I respect what she talks to, and the influence that she has over her community, the not cross community, but that is her community. And she is consistent. And if that's one of the most powerful things that I have found in working any spiritual system at all, consistency is key. And she is absolutely that in her spiritual practice and what she's talking about and what she's doing. And I see her doing it for people on a daily, and sometimes it's just jovially, sometimes it's in the sharing of a meme. But listen, she doesn't share the kind of memes that bring people down. She shares what brings people up. And that's a huge influence on I know everybody that shares in my community knows that I'm kind of a meme lord, and I'm kind of a jokey kind of guy, but it's all about love and light and the abundance and prosperity of what we're sharing. And I share everything freely. So if you find something on my page, feel free to share it. Feel free to steal it. Just don't plagiarize it.
But you got to put a ninja.
Exactly. So, if you got a ninja on your post, I mean, I stole your meme. We've got a guy, Jazzy, who calls in, is regularly on the show. Jazzy uses the floating mobster looking guy. He calls it the smooth criminal. So when he takes your meme, he puts the little smooth criminal emoji. I love that. So we go back and forth. I'll go scroll through my page and I see all these little smooth criminals, and you go on his page and you see all these little ninjas there. We've been stealing each other's memes. We could just share each other's memes, but it's not as much fun.
I know, right? It's nice to leave a little.
It's I do a healthy mix. I will, right? If you're a respectable, like for you, I share your memes quite often, but I also steal your memes quite often too. But I get the mix. It's because I respect you that I do that. But if I also, when I'm sharing the meme, I'm now sharing you with my community. And that way, if I respect you, I'll do that. If I have no clue who you are or what your message is, because tomorrow you might not post something as positive or uplifting. And see, I know that you will, and that's why I have no problem sharing you to my timeline and my feed and the community. The it's not a tight knit community, but the growing, loving community that is Awake and Aware.
Mm-hmm. Yay. Oh, thank you so much. It was so fun hanging out with you tonight.
Likewise.
I really appreciate you.
Yeah, we've had a real, we for you guys that don't know, Joanna and I have actually been having this conversation now for about 5 hours.
It's true.
Yeah, we started well before you guys joined us, and we vibe together really well. We're going to collaborate on some other things in the future too. I'm absolutely going to have Joanna back on the show, hopefully sometime early in this year. So if she's willing, we'd definitely like to have her back.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening. And yeah, definitely go to my website, unfoldinglove.com. And
Love that name. That's
if you
perfect.
have Insight Timer, I'm on there as well. You can just look for my name, Joanna Albrecht, also on YouTube,
Nice.
Joanna Albrecht. And yeah, those are the places I like to hang out the most. Facebook, YouTube, and Insight Timer is where you can hear a lot of my meditations for free. But definitely hit me up and keep in touch.
She's got great guided
classes
meditations. Her guided meditations are, I think it's probably been like 2 years since the first time I listened to one, and I was blown away. Like, cause I'm one of those people who do both guided meditations and my own personal meditations. But hers, and at the time when I listened to it, I had been listening to like calm.com, some other guided the Relax Mindfulness app, and a bunch of different other ones. And I was totally blown away by her meditations, the subject matter, the way she spoke, and her speaking voice is out. You guys have heard it. It's out of this world, especially for guided. Like that it's a gift. It's an absolute gift. It can't be taught. She has it. She has that it factor when it comes to guided meditation. So check her out for sure.
Well, thank you so much.
I just want to say, Holly Rose said, thank you for joining us. And Jasmine, thanks for joining us. Tish, thanks for joining us. Tish said, thank you, Joanne. And thank you, Nick. Well, thank you guys for showing up, and thanks for keep coming back. Cause it's the guy. One of the things I'm gonna say before I let everybody go is, since we're new to YouTube, hit the like and the subscribe and you'll get notifications and if you click the bell, then you'll get notifications when we go live. So, I don't spam. I don't send out any spam. You don't have to worry about that. But if you like the show, if you like the content, if you want to be part of the community, make sure that you find us out on YouTube. Once we have 100 subscribers, it'll become YouTube/Awaken Aware. We don't have that yet till we have 100 subscribers. Just made the YouTube channel this week. So the link is in the below on Facebook. So if you find us through that way, please wander out to YouTube and hit the like and subscribe. Help us get to 100 subscribers so we can change the name and be found for the conscious content that we are putting out, and find other like-minded individuals and grow our community. So again, Joanna, thank you very much for, let me see if I hit the right button. Nope, wrong button. Nope. There we go. You deserve an applause. The want was for me. I don't ever use those things. I just thought it'd be funny. So I really want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing all your insight about anxiety, about moving on, about your book, about your life, some of the experiences that's been going on with you. It was cathartic for me, meaning that I had a rough day starting out the day, and it actually really helped me for you being here, and I know it helped other people in the community. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Nick, and I thank everybody that came on today and listened to us. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Terrific.
Have a great night, everybody.
Ciao. Thank you. So that was good. We were on the phone for 2 hours and 22 minutes. I like when things just perfectly align like that. It's the universe. Like, we don't have any control over that. Super stoked that she came through. Super stoked that she was on the show. And the intermingling of her community and in my community specifically, but then also now becoming the Awaken Aware community, and all the people that have made the show what it is. And we had some lower numbers than usual tonight, but here's the thing, guys, is I haven't been advertising the show, and that's because I wanted to get started and work out things. And like Joanna said to me last week, sometimes it's better to get it done than it is to get it perfect. And so that's what's going on right now. This week I'm launching Awaken Aware. It's live. You can go to awakenaware.com right now if you like. You can get some of this really cool merchandise. It's available. You can get some really good coffee. I've had to close off some of the areas of the website because of COVID, the tea, and some other things. So just wanted to let you know that the stuff is available. You can go check out the website. You can check out our Facebook page, Facebook.com/Awaken facebook.com/awakenaware inc. INC. It's the same thing for Instagram. It's the same thing for Facebook, and it's the same thing for Twitter. We are Awaken Aware Inc. And we're available on all those names. And hopefully we'll have the same thing for YouTube too. I hope we get it all together. So again, I'll close out the show. I love you guys, and I really appreciate being part of your community.